2021 was another hectic year for the trucking industry, but what are the problems that are on the minds of all the professionals within transportation going into the new year? Here are your top 5 trucking workforce issues of 2021 based off of ATRI's annual survey. And to start the list off for the 5th consecutive year is something we've already become familiar with in trucking.
I was not surprised to see the driver shortage as the number one issue. We have seen numbers out of the American Trucking Associations posting that the driver shortage is now estimated to be about 80,000 drivers needed in the over-the-road segment. And certainly what's going on with the supply chain right now is getting a lot of national media attention. And so I think what did surprise me, Chris, was how many first place votes it got from among our respondents. Typically in a year, the next issue comes in at 50 or 60. The next closest issue in the survey this year came in the 30s. So it just really demonstrates how far out above everything else driver shortage was.
Driver retention rose 4 spots this year to land second place on the list.
It's interesting because right after we released, I had several motor carriers in conversations about the results say to me, in our mind, the retention and shortage are one and the same thing. You know, we have a workforce issue. We need to make sure we keep the good people we have. We don't understand necessarily why you actually have them as 2 separate issues on the survey. And I remind them that the real power of this survey, Chris, is not just what are the issues, but what are the strategies that everybody believes as an industry we should be doing to deal with each issue. And there's no question that the strategies you would pursue to get someone into the industry are different than the ones you would pursue to keep someone in the industry. And so under retention, we see those strategies that are really focused on identifying what makes drivers happy. What is the best way we can keep them? What's the mix of compensation and other factors that's going to keep the best men and women we have in this industry in this industry?
The third issue seems like it could be closely intertwined with both retention and the driver shortage, though driver compensation hasn't always been a part of ATRI's annual research.
I like to remind folks that if you take this survey and you see that your top issue is not listed as one of the ones to select, write it in, because that's how driver compensation first made it on the list. The first 3 issues all start with driver. It's all about the workforce, shortage, retention, and compensation. And it is impossible, Chris, to view any one of those in its own silo. They are all connected.
Right.
We just did another study where we looked at the motivators for why men and women choose to be owner-operators and independent contractors, or why they choose to be company drivers. And in both of those groups, income is important, but it's not the top issue that they're looking for. And so there are other things. On the owner-operator side, it's essentially the ability to choose my own work environment, flexibility in my scheduling and the routes. Income is important, but it wasn't number one.
Lawsuit abuse reform rose 3 spots this year to become the 4th highest issue of concern.
Well, and I always call lawsuit abuse reform the artist formerly known as tort reform. And I think it's really gotten a lot of attention, certainly in the media with publication of really big, gigantic nuclear verdicts against trucking fleets. That has really brought to the forefront these issues. And of course, ATRI has done research both on the nuclear verdict side as well as the small verdict side, those verdicts and settlements that come in under $1 million. And so I just think it's on a lot of people's mind. You're seeing a lot of movement at the state level to get some lawsuit abuse reform in place, legislation in place. And so I think it's really, in the front of everyone's attention right now.
Last on the top 5 workforce issues is one that may not be a surprise for many: truck parking.
This is one I'm very passionate about, Chris. And yes, it's been on this survey for 10 years now, but I will tell you, not to date myself, but I started on this job in 1993. And one of the earliest studies we worked on back then when I started was about the lack of available truck parking. And so this has been an issue that has plagued this industry far too long. And we put our drivers in an untenable situation where they don't know if they're going to have a safe place to put their head down at night. A luxury you and I have, not our professional truck drivers, and that's got to change. So we've got to provide more spaces. We've got to work with our customers to make sure they allow our drivers a safe haven if they hold them up excessively in detention. We've got to make sure our state DOTs don't close rest areas. There are a whole host of things that we need to collectively be doing as an industry to make sure that the men and women who keep this economy moving have a safe place to sleep.